Hello, everyone. I'm Steve Crawford. Welcome to the 7-Minute Spotlight. This is where we review stories, ideas, and concepts to help encourage us and inspire us as we go through life. I had an experience about 40 years ago that I want to share with you. It's kind of an interesting one in that there's little tidbits of information that will come across our lives. We'll see something, and it's very small, but it's very impactful. And if you think about it, life has those moments that there's just little nuggets that we can learn from. We have a lot of formal education and a lot of experience that has endured time, but sometimes you just get confronted with one little bit of information and it's like, yeah, that makes sense. This happened to me about 40 years ago. I was traveling in the Black Hills of South Dakota. I was on a work project with a business partner, and he and I had gone into a few of the, I'll call them tourist traps, a couple of the establishments out there. They would have, food and beverage and souvenirs and maybe entertainment and whatever. This up in one of the small towns. And it was during the fall of the year, so it was a beautiful time to be in the hills of South Dakota. But when we went into this establishment, though, I saw this sign that said, good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment. And I thought, wow, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it does, but it resonates with me 40 years later, because when I think about my life, I've made significant mistakes that, hey, this was not a good thing to do. They had the experience, and then the outcome is don't make that mistake again. And when you're in business and when you own your own business, you have plenty of opportunities to make mistakes. But the thing is that we have to experience life, though. If we don't try to do anything because we're afraid we might make a mistake, we're afraid that we maybe have bad judgment, we're afraid that maybe we don't have enough information, we don't have enough experience, we don't have enough support, whatever it might be, we can talk ourselves out of doing something. And I can't guarantee that the outcome is going to be outstanding. I can't guarantee that it's going to be a failure. There are calculated risks, and you try some things and then you learn from them. And that's experience. If you really noticed in a lot of jobs, they always want somebody that's experienced. But how do you get experience if you don't get a chance, if you don't get a start, if you don't take a risk? And so I think there's a balance with this that I'm not going to recommend that, hey, go out and make bad decisions, go out and have bad judgment on purpose so that you can learn. But as you're going through life, we can take inventory of the things that we've learned and just say, yeah, I learned from that, and I'm not going to do that again. And we can also learn from the experiences of others. And as I mentioned, in business of being in transportation, I've made plenty of mistakes of things not to do, and I know how to plan ahead a little bit better. And when I'm looking at expanding or hiring or adding equipment, whatever it might be, is that we do it based on what we know, not on what we think a good hunch would be. And at the same time, when you hear from other people and the experiences that they went through, we can take heed. Now, it doesn't mean that we have to follow exactly what they said, but I remember hearing people talking in around 2006, 7 in that era about taking on real estate investments, and it was a good idea. And that's back though when we had all the subprime interest rates and subprime lending, and there was a lot of loans that went bad. And then all of a sudden, it was hard to get a loan. They were calling loans. And when it was being explained to me ahead of time, though, as I heard how people leveraged it, you bought a house and you put $1,000 down and you rehabbed it and flipped it, whatever you did. And you made, maybe there was a $10,000 profit, but then you would go buy 3 houses with $2,000 each. And the whole idea being is that it would just, continue to grow and go forward. It makes sense, but the logic that I had from other people that are way smarter than I am is that bubble has to burst sooner or later. Well, fortunately, I listened to the people that had been there. I didn't get involved, and we know what happened in 2008. There was we had a recession. The economy was bad. Stock market took a hit. A lot of people personally took a hit that couldn't afford the houses that they were in, made investments that they had to sell, maybe go through bankruptcy, whatever it was. And so that's a case of good judgment coming from experience coming from bad judgment. So there's always opportunities out there that are going to be risky. There's things out there that we may not know. We need to do our research. We need to take a look at it. We need to be willing to try some things, but if it's not working, get out and learn from it. A good friend of mine told me this about 20 years ago. He said, when you're going down the river in a canoe, it's nice to talk to somebody who knows where the stumps are. Well, all of us have hit stumps in our lives. And so we need to learn from that. We know where the stumps are. But if we can share that with somebody else and let them know that, hey, when you're going down this road, watch out for this, watch out for that obstacle. Here's what's worked for me. Here's what has not worked for me. We can learn from others. We can learn from our own experiences. And we can make life better, not just for us, but we can make life better for other people when we're willing to share the experiences that we had, both good and bad. So keep that in mind. This week, you'll try something and it might not work. This week, you'll try something and it will work. But learn from it, share it, and help others. Thank you for listening. God bless.